Welcome, everyone. We are so glad you can join us for this on-demand webinar hosted by JFL Total Wealth Management. Today's session is part of a 7-part series called Laying Your Financial Foundation, where we review the important fundamentals for saving and spending when you are in your 20s and 30s and demonstrate how your financial success will depend on more than just a good income. Today, we are talking about the importance of proper budgeting and saving, both for short and long-term goals. We realize that when your career is just getting started or you're struggling to manage student debt, it can be hard to prioritize or even afford a savings plan. But we'll show you guidelines to maximize what you can save and how the money you put aside early is the most powerful of your lifetime. While each of your financial situations are unique, there are certain foundations, including following a realistic budget and systematically saving money, you all need in order to start the path to financial success. If you have any questions at the end of the presentation, please contact our office. We highly recommend checking our webinar library at jfltotalwealth.net/webinars for additional installments of our Laying Your Financial Foundation series. We review insurance needs, estate planning, managing student debt, and other loans you may have, as well as what you can expect to pay for big expenses like your first house or having a baby. You can also download copies of these presentations. Without further ado, let's introduce today's speakers. Jeannie Kane has an MBA from Duke University and is a certified financial planner. She has extensive experience with analyzing and managing our private clients' portfolios and with developing comprehensive financial plans. She has a son and a daughter in college. Jerry Lynch is a certified financial planner and has been an independent financial advisor for 23 years, working in the financial industry for more than 30. He has 2 sons in college and 1 still in high school.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everybody. Looking forward to our presentation for you today.
We know that each of you has a personal view of what success might look like for you as you get older, have families of your own, and reach career milestones. Our goal during this series is to provide you with the background on the topics listed here so you have the foundations for financial security at every stage of your life. Today we are talking about creating and maintaining a budget. Jeannie, take it away.
Right, so the habits you start now can make or break your retirement and the ability to achieve goals like buying a home in the future. It pays to start budgeting, planning, and saving today. The best way to start saving is by having a budget. A budget is telling you where to go instead of wondering where your money went. About half of your budget should be allocated towards essential expenses. This would be your rent, mortgage, food, clothing, kind of really just your basics. About 15% of your budget, that should be dedicated to retirement savings. Now, keep in mind that this includes contributions to your IRA, and if you have access to a 401k or a 403b, that includes your contributions as well as what your company may match. The next 5% of your budget, that goes towards short-term savings. This is your emergency fund. Jerry likes to say that this money should be put in a separate account in a bank on the other side of town that has terrible hours. Really, it just needs to be a place where it doesn't have easy access and it's not commingled with the money that you're using on a day-to-day basis. The amount that you need to save, anywhere between 3 to 6 months. If you're in a couple, you have a partner, you're both earning money, 3 months may be sufficient. But if you're single, you really want to make sure that you have 6 months worth of living expenses set aside. And if you do end up having to tap into that because there's a rainy day for you, make sure that you build it back up again as well. And that final 30%, this is for your other goals. And this is where you put budgeting and saving for your vacation or home projects, saving for your kids' college education, and even saving for that down payment on your first home. And to better understand where you're spending, understand your budget, a great tool to use is a budgeting app. And there are free apps out there such as mint.com and also Quicken. It's a paid app, but both of them kind of work the same way. And really the key here for you is to understand how you're spending your money and have a plan to redirect that money into savings if you need to. So if you're in your 20s and your 30s, retirement can seem a long way off. You've got decades to go before you retire. So it's important to understand, how much do I need to save for retirement, and am I on track or not? So a good rule of thumb to use is the 10 times rule. So at age 67, your net worth should equal 10 times your salary. Now your net worth, that's your assets, your value of your home, your retirement account, bank account, less your liabilities. If you have a mortgage, student loans, credit card debt. So again, 10 times your salary would equal your net worth. And you scale up to the 10 times as you get older. So say you're making $50,000 a year and you're 30. Your net worth should be 1 times your salary, or $50,000. And as you get older, again, that's going to increase. So at 40, it's going to be 4 times. At age 60, you should have about $400,000 saved, and that's about 8 times your salary. And then ultimately getting to that 10 times your salary at age 67. Now, these numbers are going to help you gauge, if you're on track or if you need to make some adjustments in your savings. And what if you're off? Well, you've got options. You can design your budget to have you save more and spend less. Let's take a look at how this translates into income. So say you're ready to retire, you're 67 years old, you've saved $1 million. And you're earning, $100,000 a year. So you've met that 10 times kind of rule. What does this really mean for you? Well, at a 4% withdrawal rate, and that's kind of an industry standard as to what you might kind of pull down on an annual basis, you're going to get $40,000 a year from your investments. Your Social Security benefit, now we do believe that Social Security will still be there when you retire. It's going to probably look different than where it is today, but we think it'll still be out there. So at $100,000 income, we're going to assume you get about $2,500 a month. And say you're married and your spouse, maybe they're going to get half of your benefit. That's another $45,000 a year. So you're at $85,000 a year. That's pretty close to where you were when you were working. But keep in mind, you're not going to have to bridge that entire $15,000 gap. That's because in retirement, you won't have to pay payroll taxes. You're not going to have to be saving for retirement because you're retired, and you won't have other work-associated costs like commuting or even kind of the work clothes. So we're financial planners, and while we're really focused on helping our clients reach their milestone goals like buying a home or saving for retirement, we also know that it's really important to enjoy life along the way and have fun. And as I said earlier, a budget is telling you where to go instead of wondering where your money went. So we want to make sure that you budget for fun. So how much should you set aside for fun and entertainment? Set aside 10% of your net pay. So if your salary is $50,000 a year, you'll budget $275 a month for fun. And fun and entertainment, that's a pretty broad category. So this is going to cover everything from your Netflix account all the way to a night out, all the way to your vacation. So I want to share one of my favorite quotes on spending. It's a quote from Will Rogers. He lived about 100 years ago and came up with some really great sayings about life. Too many people spend the money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like. In other words, don't try to keep up with the Joneses. We're going to talk next about how some small changes in your budget can have a really big impact on your savings plan. So who knew that cutting back on a daily latte could have a significant impact on your net worth? On the left, our chart shows kind of what happens if you invested $5 a day, maybe the cost of a cup of coffee. If you invested that every single day in the stock market instead of buying coffee, after 5 years, you're going to have $11,000. At 50 years, that's worth $800,000. And if we did the same exercise this time, but look at maybe instead of eating lunch out on a daily basis, you're brown bagging it. That $15 a day that you invest in the stock market instead of eating out, that will give you $2.5 million in 50 years. So little changes in your spending can go a long way. Now, Jerry's going to come up next and talk about saving for retirement. Jerry?
Thanks, Jeannie. So one of the things that people always ask me is that how am I doing versus other people? Now, right now, one of the biggest concerns I have is in the age bracket of 20s, only 27% of those people are saving on a regular basis. And out of the people who are age 40, half of them haven't started saving yet. Now, the reason why that's kind of an issue is this, is if I make one contribution into an IRA, $5,000 into a Roth, and I grow it for 50 years, okay, which basically takes me out to age 70, I will have basically around $234,000. That's an 8% rate of return, which is not excessive. It's a reasonable rate of return. If I wait 10 years, that return on that one contribution is only 108. So if in the beginning of my career, I save on a systematic basis, just the most important dollars of those first couple of years, I could be set for life. The second thing is, those people that start early are 66% more likely to be able to retire at age 60. Now, again, if you continue to work, that's fine. But the bottom line, it's nice to know that when you're working on your own terms, that you're there because you want to be there as opposed to you have to earn a paycheck. Now, also, again, with the people, early procrastination habits are hard to break. I mean, once you get into a position where you're not saving on a regular basis, and it gets more and more difficult as you get older to do this. So if you start early and you increase your contributions over a period of time, you're going to be in a much better place. A lot of the stuff's not rocket science. If you save, the only way that you're going to be able to retire is if you have money. The only way you have money is if you save. The earlier you start, the more you're going to have. It's not rocket science. And finally, women are a major concern for me. I mean, women outlive men. It's very reasonable at some point women may be there by themselves, and their ability to retire is limited if they don't start saving early. So only 57% of women are comfortable enough to be able to retire by the age of 70. That's a concern for me, and it should be a concern for you. But the bottom line is, the earlier you start, the better you're going to be. Now, people then say to me, all right, well, how am I going to retire? And the reality is that a lot of the way that we're going to retire is definitely different from the way our parents retired or our grandparents retired. So my mom has a pension. My father passed away quite a few years ago, but my mom's had a pension for the past 30 years. She's 85 years old. There aren't any pensions anymore in private corporations. The only way you're going to have a pension is if you're a cop, you're a teacher, you're a fireman, you work for the government. Really, it's the government programs that are pensions right now. So that's not really going to exist for many of you that are out there. Social Security, I have concerns on that. There are going to be some changes to it. There has to be changes to Social Security, because when it was set up where you get paid at age 65, average life expectancy was 64. Right now, average life expectancy is in the mid-80s. It was never designed to pay out that much. So there are going to be changes that are going to happen to it. So a majority of what you're going to need to do is going to be based on your own personal savings. The more that you could do, the better that you're going to be. Okay, and again, Transamerica did a study, 80% of the millennials have concerns on Social Security, and they should, because right now it's at a period where it's not growing to the extent it used to grow. So if you have some money, what should your financial priorities would be? The first thing I tell people is to build a safety net, okay, an emergency savings of 3 to 6 months. Bad stuff happens. Right now, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and anybody that's out there may have had a job. Many of those kids are now back with their parents because those jobs don't exist anymore. They've been laid off from work. They're trying to find something new. Certain industries, such as the restaurant industry, totally went away. These people were making very good money a short while ago. So if you have a foundation, a solid foundation, where if something bad happens, you have the ability to basically get through that with 3 to 6 months worth of money, more likely than not, we can keep those long-term plans in place. We don't have to invade our 401k plan. There's things that we could do to continue with our long-term plans because we protected our short-term situation. Once we have that taken care of, what I would suggest is take advantage of your 401k at work or your 403b if you're working for a not-for-profit. To the extent that you could start saving early, like the illustration I had before, $5,000 for 50 years, one-time contribution is about $234,000. So the earlier you start on that, the better. The next thing you should do is take a look at some of the high interest payments that you have. Again, credit cards are the downfall of many a good person. Many of these credit cards are at 18%. It doesn't make sense to invest and try to get a 10% rate of return when you have credit card debt at 18. So focus on some of those high interest credit cards and get them down as fast as you physically can. After that's taken care of, try saving in a taxable account, and that may be just a brokerage account at Fidelity or Schwab, where you're not putting pre-tax dollars in, but you put after-tax dollars that you can invest in mutual funds and stocks and different things like that, that you can help grow your money. At some point, you're going to want to buy a home. You might want to put your kids through college. Retirement accounts aren't good for that. That's where a brokerage account would come in very handy. The other thing you should also look at is if your company has a health savings account at work. This is something designed to pay for your unreimbursed medical expenses, your co-pays, prescriptions, any out-of-pocket expenses you have. Now, the reason why that's important is that if you're in a 30% tax bracket, and that's not a very high tax bracket. That's assuming part for the state, part for the federal government. It means that every time you use your HSA to pay for a medical expense, you're saving 30%. Okay, so if I could pay full price, or I could pay 30% less, I always want to pay 30% less. And again, over your lifetime, you're going to have a variety of different medical expenses, and to the extent that you could get it for substantially less expensive because you're using pre-tax dollars as a benefit of that. Now, again, if you have more money, take a look at seeing if there's additional contributions you could do into your retirement account. Can you possibly do another IRA or something like that? There's other programs that are available to help you save for long-term savings. Finally, again, there's two other things. Take a look at other types of loans that you have, lower interest loans, to the extent that you could get the debt off your books and pay that down so that you have more cash available to spend. I just think that in general, one of the biggest concerns I have over everybody is how much money they finance. If they're buying something, they put it on a card, or there's revolving credit lines and so forth. Get rid of that stuff. Pay cash for it. Be in a position where you've saved enough where you could pay cash and that you don't have to pay these interest charges. And then finally, if you have additional money, you can potentially put some into an IRA. But if you have questions on this, please let us know and we can help prioritize. And again, depending on your specific situation, we might want to do something a little bit different. Okay, I'm a huge fan of 401ks because they make saving so easy. It comes out of your paycheck. Most of the time when I talk to people who are in 401k plans, they don't even feel any money coming out of it. It becomes a new reality. So it's a very easy way to save for your future. One of the things I like about in 401k plans is something called target date funds. So all they need to do is choose a fund based on when I'm supposed to retire. So if my potential retirement date is 2050, all I do is choose a 2050 fund and I feed it. That fund automatically is going to get more and more conservative as I get older. Automatically, it's going to do what's known as rebalancing, so it puts it back into the reallocation. All I got to do is feed it. And over a period of time, these are great ways to start saving for your future. To the extent that you can maximize your contributions into your 401k plan. Again, you got to live, like Jeannie said before, you got to have some fun. But to the extent you could take any of the raises that you get every once in a while, take a portion of that and put it aside for retirement, over a period of time is going to put you in a great position. Okay, anytime the market drops, you know, one of my sayings is, would you rather go to Macy's on a Wednesday when everything's on sale or pay full price? Anytime the market's on sale, this year the market was on sale this March when the market was down 30% in a 4-week period of time. Anybody who is investing over that 4-week period of time get the best rates of return because the market came back up. You got a 30% return within a 6-month period of time. That's awesome. So if you can increase your contributions when the market's going down, there's a benefit of doing that. Do not take money out of your 401k plan. If you're below the age of 59 and a half, you will be subject to a 10% penalty. You will be subject to ordinary income taxes. And more importantly, you're going to blow up your retirement account. Don't do it. If you leave a company, you could roll over your 401k plan into a new company, basically, or you could roll it into an IRA. The advantage of an IRA is you could choose any stock, any bond, any fund. Anything you want, you can get in an IRA. The advantage of putting it into your new 401k plan is simple. You don't have all this stuff that's out there. It's easy for you to manage because there's less pieces that are associated with it. And finally, make sure you take advantage of the match. You know, one of the ways I explain a match is that if I came up to you and I said, listen, if you give me 20 bucks, I'll immediately give you back $40. How many people would sign up for that? And that's exactly what a match does. So if your income, and I'm just going to use simple numbers, is $100,000 and your investment on your 401k plan is 3%, and there's a match of 3%. Right now you're saving 6% because of the company contribution. You are doubling your money the minute you put it into your 401k plan. So again, any opportunity you have to take advantage of employer contributions, you need to do at least the minimum in order to be able to maximize that contribution for your retirement account. Now, if you're not eligible for a 401k plan, you could always do an IRA. You could either do a Roth or you could do a traditional IRA. You have a limit of $6,000 a year, but either way, you can save. Now, some people say, well, if I do an IRA, I'm not getting a company contribution. I really don't care. I've never met a retiree that said, this money that I'm spending this week, this is my company's money. This is my personal money. All they say is that it's my money. So even if there's not a match on an IRA, I would just say, get used to saving on a systematic basis. And if you have a spouse who's not working, they may be eligible to set up an IRA as well. There are some limitations on the income that you'd have to take a look at, but bottom line is you should take a look and see if you can make that happen. Now, How am I doing? That's one of the questions. People always want to compare themselves to other people just to see if I'm reasonable. So if you're in your 20s, the average 401k balance is around $12,000 and the average savings is around 7%. So if you're doing that, you should feel good about yourself. If you're in your 30s, the average balance is around $42,000 and they're saving a little bit more, maybe about 7.8%, a little bit less than 8%. And again, if you're young, I would say too, consider doing the Roth contributions because it's the most powerful money you're ever going to have. Again, a Roth, you're not getting a tax deduction on the money when it goes into the plan. However, the money grows tax deferred, and when you pull it out in retirement, it's income tax free. It's something that's really nice. And if you're in your 40s, the average balance is around 100,000 and the contribution rate is about 8.5%. So take a look at this and see how you're doing. If you're below those numbers, it doesn't mean you're shot for life, but it means that you should try to see what you could do to step up a little bit and put some more money into your retirement account. Now, one of the things in a 401k plan is that most of these have the ability to do a loan, all right? And just because you could do it doesn't mean you should. If you were to take out $15,000 out of your 401k plan as a loan and you paid yourself back, your account balance by the time you're 60 is going to be substantial, $66,000 less because of that $15,000 loan. Now, again, in the right situation, I think this makes sense. So, for example, I used a loan on my 401k plan so I could get into a home. My family was growing and needed a bigger home. And because of that, I took some money out of my 401k plan. I think that's a reasonable thing to do because it wasn't like I was taking money out and buying something that went away, like a vacation or a depreciating asset like a car. I used it to get into a situation where I could be there longer. So I think that makes sense. But if you're taking money out, and this is with somebody who's that age, I think it's 45, that they're taking out this money. What if they were 35? Well, that $66,000 loss would be $144,000. And if they were 25, it would cost them over $300,000 that they're going to lose by taking that money out of the plan, just because of the loss of growth of that money over that period of time. So for example, if I use that $15,000 for a really nice vacation, that would be the most expensive vacation I ever had. If I was 25 years old, it would cost me about $311,000. Better be a tour around the world. So you want to make sure you don't do it. And if you have any questions, please give us a call and let us know. Now, again, there are advantages of doing 401k loans and disadvantages of all these different types of programs. So, for example, one of the advantages of it is that there's no taxes or penalties taken out. So if I'm taking the money out, I'm not paying any income tax on that money, and it's also not triggering anything that impacts my credit report. When I take a loan on my 401k plan, there's nothing on Experience or TransUnion that says I took out $10,000 out of my 401k plan. The downside of these things is that, first of all, you have to pay it back in 5 years plus interest. If you leave your current job, you've got to come up with that money or you're going to default on your loan and you have a 10% penalty in ordinary income tax. And it could be basically you're losing the growth of that money, even if you pay it back literally for the rest of your life. Now, you could also do what's known as a withdrawal, okay, where you just take the money out and stick it in your pocket. The downside of that is, first of all, if you're under age 50, you're going to be subject to a 10% penalty. So in this situation, you're getting $15,000 out, your penalty is going to be $1,500. You're going to have taxes and taxes that are due on that. So really, you're going to end up losing a lot of money out of that, probably around 50 cents on the dollar before you end up in your pocket. And again, more importantly, is you can end up blowing up your 401k or your retirement plan. Now, under the CARES Act, there's some special tax provision that would allow you to take the money out, and if you put it back within 3 years, the penalties go away. But I would say if you're not sure, please reach out and talk to us in the office. We may be able to walk you through some strategies that work out a little bit better. Now, we're going to go through 3 different scenarios. So you have Susan, who invests $5,000 between the ages of 25 and 35. She invests for 10 years. So she invests a total of $50,000. You got Bill, who basically sees that Susan's doing terrific in her 401k plan. He invests $5,000 from age 35 to 65. So he puts in 3 times the amount of money that she does. And then you have Chris, who basically just says $5,000 a year between the ages of 25 to 64. So he invests a total of $200,000. If you take a look at this, Chris is now a millionaire. Okay, the reason why Chris is a millionaire is that, first of all, he invested through all different market conditions over his entire lifetime. Susan did very well. She had the least amount of money that she put into the plan, but because she stopped, she lost out on $500,000. And if she had continued that, she would have been where Chris is. And then Bill, because he puts in 150 grand, but he starts late, he basically starts 10 years later than everybody else. he ends up with less than half of what Chris has and substantially less than Susan, and Susan put in a lot less money into her account. Now, again, this doesn't mean if you're Bill and you're starting at age 35, you're shot for life. No, it doesn't. It just means that you're going to need to save more on a regular basis to get where you want to be. Now, one of the most common questions people ask me is, Jerry, can you make me a millionaire? I can make anybody a millionaire if you're disciplined, you save on a regular basis, and you live below your means. So here we have, if I am at age 20, how much money would I have to save on a monthly basis to be able to have $1 million? And that comes out to 361. At age 30, that would more than double to $698. At age 40, I need to save $1,500 plus per month to be able to do that. And if I'm at age 55, $6,000, and at age 60, $14,000 a month. Now, again, this gets back to what we were saying throughout this entire presentation. The earlier you start, the better. And to the extent that you could start saving now through all different market conditions over a period of time, you're going to be very thankful that you did. Now, one of the options that you have in your 401k plan, or even in IRAs, is that you could do a Roth contribution, or you could do a traditional contribution. A traditional contribution is tax deductible, meaning when you put money into an IRA or your 401k plan, if you're in a 30% tax bracket and you put $6,000 into it, you saved $1,800 in taxes. In a Roth contribution, that $1,800 doesn't exist. You're not getting a tax deduction on it. The advantage of the Roth, though, is that money grows tax deferred, and when you pull it out in retirement, it is income tax free. And using a farming analogy, if you were a farmer, would you rather pay tax on the crop or on the seed? In a Roth, you're paying tax on a small amount on your initial contribution, but all of that money grows to be tax-free. On a traditional contribution, you're getting a deduction on the money that you're putting in, but when you pull it out in retirement, it's going to be income taxable to you in whatever your bracket is. Now, the advantage of a traditional is, especially in your 30s and 40s, when your income is increasing, you want to get that tax deduction because it's reasonable. You may not retire in that tax bracket when you retire. And again, if you could do the Roth contributions up front, you're getting the power of the compounding at an early phase, and that income is going to be tax-free to you in retirement. So that's a beautiful thing. Now, again, when we look at what are the best practices, number one is you're not going to ever get rich based on your income. You're only going to get rich based on how much you save on a systematic basis. None of the people that are wealthy out there have done it because of their income. They've done it because they've saved on a systematic basis over a very long period of time, and they live below their means. Planning a budget. You got to understand where your numbers are going, and you need to be realistic about what 10% of your net pay can buy, okay? If you can systematically invest and understand where your money is going, it's easier if you're able to say, listen, this is a little bit something that I could probably cut out, or this is something that's a priority I want to continue to do. Be creative in the ways that you save money. One of the things that we used to always do when we rented a beach house is we'd have it on the bay side. It doesn't sound like that's big of a deal, but the thing is, they're a lot less expensive being on the bay side than being a little bit closer to the ocean. You know, there's always ways. Instead of going on vacation, can you go camping? Are there other things that you can do where you can still have a lot of fun? You can enjoy yourself and your family, and you can do it at a very low cost. And finally, save as early as possible for retirement. You know, so again, I think some of the keys are live below your means. If you make a certain amount of money, you got to spend less than that. Every time you get a pay increase, take part of that and have some fun with it. But take a good portion of that and save that for your long-term goals. Automate your entire system. So you should not be writing checks to invest in mutual funds or anything. It should be coming out of your bank account automatically. Use the banking features that are available to you to make this thing work. Take a look at your estate planning documents, wills, power of attorney, living wills, medical directives. These are something that everybody needs. And review your insurance. Make sure that if something bad happens, that people aren't going to take your stuff. You need to have the right car insurance, excessive liability, such as an umbrella policy, life insurance, disability, all these different things. And we've done some programs on that. So if you're interested, go onto our website and you can catch this information. If you have any questions, just give us a call. But this is the basics of a good financial plan. And to the extent that you have any questions on this, please feel free to give us a call. We're happy to help you out in any way we can. So Gretchen, why don't you take us to the end here?
Thanks you, Jeannie and Jerry, for that great advice on setting a realistic budget and savings plans. As Jerry mentioned, if you have any questions or would like to speak with us about your personal financial situation, please contact our office. And check out our website where you can view other key topics for laying your financial foundation as well. Thank you.